Hello, Jamie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay, and you?
Good, good. Okay, so yeah, not a simple answer to a simple question. I do a variety of things. First and foremost, for my company, I do line producing, which means that companies from, say, the UK or America will come in to Japan and they hire me to hire the staff, often get the equipment and the locations and everything they need to make their project happen. They give me the money and I use the budget and make it happen. I produce it. That's the sort of major thing that I do to make money. The second thing I do is I'm a director and I'm a writer, and I write and direct my own projects. Many of them are music videos. I've done spots, little promo videos for various products like this. This guy was from Italy, he was a designer, and you helped with that, so you know about that. Thirdly, what I do is I also shoot video. I have my own equipment and I'm a videographer. So for smaller projects, I will shoot and do sound for their projects. It's not so simple to answer either, because I was an English teacher when I came over to Japan, and I ended up buying a camera so that I could make my first project, which was about Bosozoku, which are the Japanese bikers who sort of dress up in kamikaze themed outfits, and they ride around and run red lights and get into mischief and trouble, and the police chase them. So I ended up becoming a filmmaker by making that film. And I shot that myself, and I did everything myself. So I learned every part of the business by making that documentary. And in the end, I sell it online and these kind of things. So I make a little bit of money from that, and that's also how I get some of the projects. The first major company that I worked with from the UK, they got interested in me because of the bikers, and they wanted to put those bikers in their music video. And it's a sort of small artist, but she wanted to ride around with these bikers. And so I'm the person that knows them and is famous for filming them in that world. So they hired me to do everything. And I basically got all of the staff, I got the bikers together, and we made it happen in one day. We shot it all in one day. Ended up shooting at the robot restaurant, everywhere. So that sort of led me to realize that I can make money and I can be involved with bigger projects by using my contacts with local talent and local crew. So that's how I do the line producing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Role model, my cat, because he lies around all day, and when I come home he still complains.
How many cats do you have?
Two. Two.
What are their names?
Freddie. Freddie. Hey, you want to get on camera? Freddie and Tommy. Stanley Kubrick is one of my favorite sort of filmmakers, because he also was self-taught, very into photography, and really pushed the envelope as far as what was possible in his day for production. And yeah, he sort of really married technology and art and music and acting and writing all into the films that he made. And those films were yeah, I mean, they were better than anybody's films at the time, and they'll never be forgotten. So I like him. I also like Christopher Nolan, because I think he tackles quite interesting topics. I like filmmakers who aren't content with making stuff that looks good on a trailer, or is meant for people with sort of low attention spans. You know what I mean? I like people that are willing. They can do a bit of both. They can entertain. I totally understand that, but really pushing that fourth wall of the audience and making people think as well as be entertained. So I like Christopher Nolan, Kubrick, of course, Scorsese and Orson Welles, Werner Herzog. Werner Herzog is a documentary filmmaker. He also makes regular feature films, but he's another person. Have you ever heard of Werner Herzog? He sort of does he's German, and he did Grizzly Man, and he does a lot of his own narrations, and he's sort of got this really distinctive voice, and yeah. Anyways,
I have to check it out.
yeah, Grizzly Man, yeah. Okay, so long time ago I wanted to go into medicine. My first degree was in biology, and at the time I wasn't really much of a scientist, to be honest. I was sort of more interested in making people laugh and having a good time and joking in class, and I ended up taking an acting class. So at my university, I took whatever intro to acting or whatever, and I really loved it. Wasn't too good at it, but I had some talent, but I wasn't. I just loved doing it. I didn't care. Did a few plays and ended up directing something for a class, and realized that actually that was what I really, it wasn't difficult for me, and it also was something that, although it wasn't difficult, I felt like I needed to learn a lot, and I just loved directing actors, and that was for the stage, of course, but the stage wasn't enough. So because I didn't feel like I could reach an audience, the audience that I wanted to, so I ended up grabbing a video camera, and at the time I was partying a lot, going to rave parties, which are sort of, well, I don't know what they're called now, but you take a lot of ecstasy and drugs and take your camera around and go do stuff. Well, at the time, I enjoyed that, but it wasn't enough. I always felt like an observer, even when I was on drugs and I was watching everybody. Everybody else was, dancing and living in the moment, and I was watching people, and I was observing them, and the characters, the oddball characters that everybody turned into after they got high, and it was quite sweet. There was never violence or anything, but people just it was like this little world that was created by chemicals, music, and lights. And, of course it was destroyed in the morning, but I wanted to capture that. So I took my camera and just started filming these things, and ended up editing on Final Cut Pro 1. When it first came out, my university opened up this thing called a digital studio. So I took all my raw footage, and I just learned how to use Final Cut Pro by doing it. And at the time, you had to render every transition. It took forever just to make this sort of 5-minute piece. But I made something called How Do You Rave? And it was basically, it was just first person, just showing all these crazy people and me reacting to it, and so I knew then that somehow I was probably going to be involved with filmmaking, and at the beginning it was sort of documentary style, but I think I just love the idea that I love photography, because you're really capturing something that can't be reproduced in a strange way, even though, even takes in a film, right? I mean, everyone is unique, right? So Stanley Kubrick would do hundreds, but there was little minute differences that, will never happen again. And that's what I love about photography, If I had to focus on one, it would be writer, producer, director. I'd love to produce and direct my own scripts or adapted scripts, but yeah. The best part, it's the work, I think the best part is that feeling after you get through that first edit, and it's not done. You know that it's crap, or you could cut a whole bunch of stuff, but it's when you reach that point where you know that what you did on set is actually going to turn into something that might work, it's really exciting, especially if it was very challenging technically or whatever creatively on set. But then you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, this is going to work, you know? It's that moment, yeah, when the rough cut, right after the rough cut. And then, of course, the real work begins, and cutting out stuff that you don't need, and you know. But getting to the rough cut is, to me, the ultimate, yeah, the ultimate rush. Money. Yeah, I mean, you know, even nowadays we've got all these cameras, and cameras are cheap, but these cameras aren't even enough, really, you know, to make the kind of impact that you want. I mean, you know, look, you can do stuff on YouTube, and that's all grand and well done, but yeah, if you have money, if you have money and a little bit of experience, I think it goes a long way, you know. And I think that's every filmmaker ends up learning the craft and then butting up against that challenge, I think. You know, some of them get the money, some of them don't. If you make something famous, you're probably going to have a chance to, you know, have your career set. If you're like, well, Kubrick was an example who was, you know, critically acclaimed after his, you know, his second film, I think. Even you've got Spike Lee, who made that film, that first film, and he can do whatever he wants. He can make shit now, which he often does. But he's still going to get money for his next film. So I think getting money is something that, that's what I'm really focused on right now. And it's not for my salary so much, but it's getting the money to pay people, get locations, to do things properly. And once you get a taste for that, you start to realize that you can't go back. And so you need money, you know, to make things happen. It took me a few projects to start to realize that very thing, because when you start out, you just sort of have these ideas and you don't know. But I realized that I'm obsessed with costumes and masks, specifically costumes. So the bikers wear the costumes, right? They get into a costume when they go out on the bikes. And the ones that don't put them on, I just didn't give a shit about. I'd film them, but it was just boring. So that was the first time I saw that, okay, the costumes. Then I started filming right-wingers, and they also put on this costume, but they also put on something more abstract, which is this angry, you know, angry Japanese guy costume. They've got the military style, but the reality is the guys that I was filming were real sweethearts offset. When they weren't being filmed and when they weren't messing with the cops, they took off their costume. They were just normal, but when they got into that, you know, that mode, they put on the right-winger costume. So then I started making, I started doing this documentary about a woman, an English woman who wears kimonos, and she's a kimono expert, and that's her costume. I mean, to her it's not a costume. She wears it every day, but to me it's like her costume. That's her life, you know. Putting on this kimono is putting on her persona. So what sets my work apart, I think, is that I'm really interested in people that become somebody else. And I you know, even if I do features, if I'm lucky enough to do big budgeted features, then I think I will always be interested in people that morph into somebody else and put on a costume, you know. And it doesn't have to be a real costume, but it would be a virtual costume, or you can take that into any abstract sort of layer, putting on costumes. I think I'm obsessed with people putting on costumes. What I'd really like to do that I haven't done is what I'm trying to achieve, which is a proper, million whatever plus budget film. That's what I want to do, because then I'll be, happy that I've at least tried, And I want to work with all of the people that we love watching, and I want to work with, great actors and great cinematographers, and I want to, have money to spend on sets, and I just want it, you know, I want it all. A big budget, that's what I want to do. Okay, the short answer to that, there's two answers, okay? They're both simple, but they're both difficult. So simple and difficult are two different things to me because they involve a little bit of luck. Well, the first one does. If you're talented and you make something that makes a big splash right away, make sure it gets seen. That's the simple way. Do the right thing, or make Reservoir Dogs. You know, make something that makes a splash. Don't hold back. That's the simple way to get into the business. Now, the simple but maybe slightly more difficult way is to work hard, hone your craft, become somebody that people trust and knows what they're doing, and quietly build your repertoire. That's simple, but not necessarily easy. You know, both of them involve, you know, being confident and knowing that what you're doing is right. You know, so yeah, it's a long answer, wasn't it? The most embarrassing thing that happened to me was that I set up a whole shoot for Sunrise. And okay, the story is basically it was a music video that somebody came to me and said, you know, we'll give you this little money, you can make it. And I said, no, I'm going to put my own money into it, and we're going to shoot it at Sunrise, and we're going to shoot it on a red camera, expensive Hollywood camera, and we're going to, you know, I'm going to bring all the models out, and I'm going to get costumes made and everything. And I got everything set up. I put my own money into it, and we got there at Sunrise, and we're on the beach, and we were shooting for a while, and I realized that on the beach there was a marathon that day. So the reason I wanted to do it at Sunrise was because I didn't want any people. So the whole point, the whole concept of the whole music video was that you had these people riding on bicycles, the band members, and there's supposed to be nobody. It was supposed to be like a magical place where there's nobody else. And guess what? There's people running all over the place. So we ended up having to shoot around that anyways. So it cost me like $1,000 more just to bring everybody to hotels to do all this. And I was driving and I set everything up for the Sunrise shoot so that there would be nobody there, and the beach was filled with people. So we had to shoot around them anyways. So was that embarrassing? I don't know. It's kind of embarrassing to me. So right now with the kimono thing, I'm talking with a production company who wants to take it to a network here in Japan. I'm not going to say who, but it's a major network, and see if they're interested in a project called Kimono World. So I've made a bunch of web videos that people can see. The main character named Sheila Cliff, and she's this kimono expert who is really interested in the way that kimono is affecting the modern fashion world. Not just this sort of old, dried up way of looking at kimono, but a really exciting, revolutionary garment. So we're hoping to sell that to a network soon. Yeah, and you know, if you put it on your blog or whatever, people should check out Sayonara Speed Tribes.
Okay.
So they can watch it, they can rent it or whatever online. It's all over iTunes, all that. Just do a search for Sayonara Speed Tribes, Bosozoku, and you'll be able to find it somewhere. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.